Hey, everybody. Just to let you know, this podcast may contain some adult or possibly offensive language.
No nudity, though.
Unless you're thinking about naked people.
It's not easy to break tradition, or like evolve tradition in Italy. They want to burn me in the main piazza as a witch,
Hey, party people and the place to be. You're checking out What's Good with Stretch and Bobbito. I am Stretch Armstrong.
My name is Bobbito Garcia.
Indeed.
And I'm hungry right now.
Well, you're going to get hungrier because we don't have food. And today's guest is the world-renowned chef and humanitarian Massimo Bottura.
Now, Stretch, I have to admit that I'm not the jealous type.
Peanut butter and jelly?
But tengo celos. You were able to go to his restaurant in Italy, in Modena, and experience the #1 rated restaurant at this point in the entire world. What was that like?
Yeah. Well, of course, I got invited by Massimo. I was DJing an event for our friend Giorgio Dimitri.
Mm-hmm.
It was a costume party. I'm DJing in the booth, and I didn't really participate in the full grandeur of costumology. I was wearing a white suit with a white mask. That's it. Because, you're DJing, right? You're getting hot
Sure.
and whatnot. And Massimo comes into the booth, and he puts his hand out. He says, "Hello, yeah, you Stretch."
Is he dressed as a lasagna?
He was dressed as the crunchy part of the lasagna. I have to admit, I had heard of him, but I didn't know what he looked like. And I guessed that it was him for some reason. And when he said, "I hope you can come to my restaurant to eat," I was hoping that it was him. Because that would mean we were going to go to Osteria Francescana. Yeah. And the next day, sure enough, I was there.
Sitting at
at the chef's table.
Now, this is a restaurant that has a waiting list of months, maybe a year to sit at, and you're just meeting him for the first time, and then how serendipitous.
It was incredible. It surpassed my expectations. Massimo was there for the whole meal, and in between explaining what each dish meant, he was telling just crazy stories about things that happened in New York with other chefs, about night clubbing back in the day. It was just the most incredible experience culinarily that I've ever had. I probably will never experience something like that again unless I can go to Osteria with you.
And he also has a nonprofit, Food for Soul, which he has been collaborating with other chefs and restaurants around the world. Our audience out there, you are in for a treat. Coming up next, Massimo, the Grand Chef. We'd like to say a quick thank you and share a message from one of our sponsors, Sony Music Latin, presenting Grammy Award-winning artist Ile, a Puerto Rican singer and composer known for her work with Calle 13. Her debut album, Inevitable, garnered her a Best New Artist nomination at the Latin Grammys and subsequently won the award for Best Latin Rock, Urban, or Alternative Album at the 60th Annual Grammy Awards. Her new single and video titled Odio is available everywhere ahora mismo.
Some things were meant for each other. Fries and milkshakes, selfies and duck face, and now What's Good with Stretch and Bobbito and Spotify. Yes, the same app that has millions of songs now also has thousands of podcasts. On Spotify, you can listen to all your favorite shows and discover new ones. To subscribe to ours, search for What's Good with Stretch and Bobbito, tap follow, and get every new episode delivered to you. Podcasts on Spotify. They're streaming right now and now and now. And we are back in the studio with
oh, guys, this is crazy. What's going on here?
With world-renowned.
He doesn't know what is in.
No, I don't know.
Can we start this thing?
Where am I?
You did look a little discombobulated when you walked in.
This
What
is
happened?
a zoo.
Did they prep you?
Yeah.
Were you
No, I don't know anything. I just walk in.
Well, welcome to our show. This is What's Good with Stretch.
That's right. And the voice you're hearing is none other than world-renowned chef Massimo Bottura. I think at the stage
guys.
you're
Did
you're
he
reaching
pronounce
like
it? Did he pronounce it okay?
Yeah,
You're-
perfect.
you're
perfect.
real. Okay.
Actually, one of the first one who pronounced Massimo Bottura very well.
Oh, cool.
you're reaching that level of status where I think we might even be able to just drop the Bottura. Like when someone says Massimo, they know who they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
They all call me Massimo.
Yeah. You learned how to cook from your
Ooh.
mother, your grandmother, and your aunts. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think my grandmother was extremely important in my life, first of all, because she convinced me to stop playing soccer as a professionist, but keep studying. I was 17 and I was pretty good on playing soccer, and as all the Italians, does. And she said, if you want to play, you can play, but you're gonna regret for the rest of your life. So keep studying. It's very important. And she convinced me, and that was a key moment in my life. Or my mom, she transferred the obsession about the quality of the ingredients, And but my mom was very important in the moment in which I start studying to become a law school. And she saw me that I wasn't happy at all. I dropped law school, and 1 week later I was in the kitchen of a small place in the countryside of Modena, and I put all my strength, because I had to show my father that my mom was right and he was wrong, So if I think about my mom and my grandmother, those two moments were like the most important moment of my life,
I'm just curious about the role of women in the traditional Italian home, right? They're the ones in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Are they territorial, like men stay
No,
out?
it's like
or-
it's always been a woman territory in which usually in the countryside they were taking care of the whole economy. They didn't lose one piece of breadcrumbs because they know exactly what to do with everything. I mean, my grandmother was saying the 8th of December, where we were killing the pigs, was a very special moment for us in the country. She was saying, this pig is giving his life and is going to feed the family for the whole year. So we have to be very respectful. It's a very spiritual action. Is giving his life for us, so we have to use every single bone of the animal. So that's the point that for me was like extremely important, that because I've learned not to waste anything. And around the table in the kitchen, it's the way you put together the family. All my brothers and sisters and aunt and parents and mother and grandmothers all together, and you play, you fight. You make peace, you dream together, you plan the future, you talk about business or soccer, whatever. But it's always in the kitchen table.
So I'm thinking, World War II, right? Your grandmothers are coming of age in this era, and what was food like in Italy during these times, and then post World War II?
Yeah.
I'm imagining the cuisine and the food available had to have taken a shift.
Yeah.
And what memories, or not your own, of course. You're
No.
not old enough, but-
It's I have so many stories that Lydia was my first chef in Trattoria del Campazzo. She's like the woman that really gave me the opportunity to learn in a professional way how to prepare and to be ready for a big night, And Lydia and my grandmother they were telling me all these stories about food and tradition. They disappear. For example, countryside. No, was nothing, because the Germans and fascists, they were like killing everything and steal everything in that moment. And you didn't have anything to eat, and the farmers, they were chasing for wild potatoes. That at that time they were called wild potatoes, and they were boiling them, and they were really bad. Those wild potatoes were truffles. The black truffles, the big black truffles, they were used as potatoes, and I don't want to say they smell, but they taste like earth. But when you didn't have anything to eat and you didn't know what to do with that kind of stuff, you were boiling them and to survive. Those kind of things is like unbelievable. Like passatelli, like one of my favorite meal, like breadcrumbs with bread like 4-5 days old. You grate it and you mix with some Parmigiano Reggiano crust, grated on top of that, and one or two eggs. Makes a very quick dough, some nutmeg, and squeeze into a potato squeezer, into a broth like chicken broth maybe, and you eat as a noodle.
And this is something that was generated during the 1930s, 40s,
Yeah,
during wartime.
Yeah, Italian cuisine comes from the people, you know. The Italians, they were like very poor, and they were like developing this cuisine with nothing. So that's what we are, you know, with a tomato. Give me a tomato, a plate of, and you know, a couple of, 1 pound of pasta, and we're gonna create something amazing and so enjoyable, you know.
Love it.
You hungry?
No, I want to know why you ask me that. It's the first time they ask me something like that.
Well,
but I'm very interested. You know?
My mother, she was raised in Puerto Rico,
Yeah.
right? And there's a dish there called vianda. Basically, they take the jaltia, they take the yuca, they take the batata, and they mix it all together in like a stew. And it's really it's not just about what would go well with each other, but it's also making the best out of what the earth provides. And we generally conceive of Italian cuisine as this. I mean, your restaurant is ranked #1 in the world right now, so we think of it in a very high level. In similar way with the French cuisine, couldn't have always been like that.
This kind of mentality is exactly the mentality we approach to the refectorio. We have.
What is the refectorio?
Refectorio is like my social project. It's like during the Universal Exposition 2015, the theme was Feed the Planet. We produce food for 12 billion people. We are 7 billion on Earth. 1 billion people, they don't have anything to eat. And we waste 1.3 billion tons of food. This is unacceptable. So Feed the Planet means, for me, fight waste and not produce more. All the waste is polluted the world. It's the first cause of pollution. So this is crazy. We produce food, we use energy, water, and human resources, and then we polluted the world because we burn it. We don't eat it. We set up the bar very high. We create our own pavilion outside the Universal Exposition. We regenerate this amazing 1930 theater, and we create a beautiful place that revived the old neighborhood, welcoming people like migrants, refugees, homeless, people in need in a most amazing space. So through beauty, you can rebuild dignity of the people. This in 3 years became a global movement. In 2018, the chef is much more than the sum of his recipes. That means you have a voice. You can use the spotlight that is on you as best restaurant in the world and help the other. This is consciousness,
When you talk about food, you often invoke the concept of family, sort of literally and figuratively. Of course, you have your own family, and then Francescana is a family.
Absolutely.
It seems like you've done this beautiful thing where you've kind of integrated the two. So if you could just maybe talk about the concept of family and how it relates to food.
Of course. It's like I dedicate really my life at the obsession of cooking and obsession of quality. And, once you start, you have this kind of mentality, you have to involve your family because otherwise you're going to lose it. So I start involving Lara, Charlie, and Alexa in our everyday life.
Charlie and Alexa are your children?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so
our listeners don't know.
I'm sorry.
Our listeners are like,
to me, it's
who are
like
these three people you're talking about?
Yeah, it's like my wife and my daughter and my son. Yeah, of course, I speak like with my friends, here, and we dedicate our life to the restaurant, to feed the people, to hospitality, and so we need to integrate this. And as Lara said many times, my wife said, I marry Massimo, but I also marry the restaurant, because it's like we treat them as a family. We provide them like a place to sleep, food, everything.
I had the privilege of dining at the Osteria with our friend Giorgio Dimitri and his lovely wife. And
I was not there.
And you were there.
I was there.
And it was really...
I'm always there. When I'm in Modena, I'm always say hi to people, welcome people. It's like always.
There's an intellectual component to your food.
Yes.
And you walked us through everything.
Yeah.
I had never really contemplated the amount of thought that went into a dish.
Yeah.
So one of the main takeaways for me was that the tradition of not just Italian cooking, but the cooking from your area is very strong. But you said it's not holy.
No.
Right?
No, absolutely. To me, one of the most important thing is it's like look at the past in a very critical way, not in a nostalgic one. Because if you look at the past in a nostalgic one, you don't change anything. You don't evolve. But in a critical way, you can get the best from the past into the future. When the New York Times gave me the honor to be one of the greats, and I shoot a video with Yuri, an artist, about just the sound of the crunchy part of the lasagna. The crunchy part of the lasagna is the most interesting part of the big pan of the lasagna that the grandmother usually bring in the middle of the table for Sunday lunch. Me and my brothers, we were fighting over the crunchy part of the lasagna. So when I'm rebuilding, and I'm cooking something like that, I don't care about eating like this big pan of the lasagna, serving like an enormous amount of food. I want to serve emotions. And to serve emotion, I have to rebuild the crunchy part of the lasagna and share with everyone who comes to Osteria just that corner, crunchy corner, with the perfect bolognese sauce and an amazing, bechamel, no? That's the point, You don't come to Osteria Francescana, travel 24 hours by plane and to eat good food. Of course, it's a good food. It's a 3 Michelin star. But you come to eat the cultural expression of the chef. If you ask me what do you do every day, I answer, I compress into edible bites my passion. But sitting on centuries of history, so it's super Italian, and but filtered by a contemporary mind.
I read, though, that the first year you were feeding friends constantly, right?
Friends, because no one was showing up at the restaurant.
So you had to get people.
Yeah, there was
like
years by years, like, no one was showing up. I had to sell everything, Now it's very easy to see, oh my God, so successful, #1 restaurant in the world. But for 7 years, it was like struggling because we were cooking exactly the same things, the 5 different age Parmigiano in 5 different texture and temperature, the ice cream bar of foie gras with balsamic vinegar and, crunchy almond and hazelnuts, but people didn't want that. They didn't understand. That was too avant-garde for them. And then, when the first stars arrived, when I received all the prizes and the things. It became, they became icon for the contemporary cuisine. It's not easy to break tradition, or like evolve tradition in Italy. They want to burn me in the main piazza as a witch, But the key point was the moment in which we've shown all these guys, the locals, that we can cook better than their grandmothers. That was the moment. That was the moment in which we will make pasta better than the grandmothers. They understood that I could paint also in abstract. Picasso was always saying, I was drawing as Raffaello since I was 13, and then it took their whole life to paint like a kid, exactly like us. You have to do step by step. You can't you can provocate people if they don't understand. You have to show them step by step what you can do, and then you take with them, you take by hand and say, come with me. I'll show you also what we can do.
So we are in New York City, someplace that you return to frequently.
Yeah.
You live in New York in 93, but you already have the restaurant back at home, right?
Yes.
How does that work? How do you just get up and go?
I don't know. I was really. I I was ready to leave, and New York was my place. I fell in love since the first time I came.
So you came in 1982?
In 82.
And what did you experience
What
then?
a time.
Yeah, that was very, that was very different.
Were you into breaking at all?
No, we were here with a team of people. We were all the young kids learning English. It was insane.
Were you
It was-
unsupervised for some of that time?
Yeah, yeah.
His eyes are, you look like a devil right now.
Yeah,
What's going on?
no.
What happened?
No, it's like we had like, it was amazing. It was amazing. I fell in love for New York, and like in '93 I left everything to come here. Then I rent a small apartment in Upper West Side. That day I was walking in Seoul. I remember the exact day. It was the 7th of April 1993. I was walking in the area in Seoul from between Grand and Mercer, checking Jeffrey Deitch Gallery
Nice.
on Grand, and then I've seen a sign of an important coffee brand, Italian coffee brand. I said, I'm going to have a cappuccino. And I walk in and I asked for a cappuccino, and took like 25 minutes to have a cappuccino. So I said, my God, these guys, they have problems. So I said, I'm not doing anything, right now. I will maybe help them. And so I left my number, blah, blah, blah. And I went back home, and I received a message on the answer machine and saying, can you come tomorrow? And the same day, Lara applied for a job in that same place as a bartender. She was acting at the Worcester Theater on the other side of the street, and she received the same message. So we start the 9th of April, and in 1 week we had the key of the restaurant. I decided the menu. I kept the restaurant open for dinner too, because they were like serving just breakfast, lunch, and became pretty successful. And this was going on till September, end of September. So I went back home because I had to go back home, and I left everything, again.
What were you exposed to in New York City that you carry with you to this day?
Actually, I met my wife there,
You still carry her.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. And but no, Lara was extremely, extremely helpful. She really made visible the invisible for me. There was before and after New York, So I start really getting deep into art and stealing idea from the artists and putting them in edible ideas, Like this whole new generation of British artists like Damien Hirst, Tracy Emin, Jake and Dino Chapman, all these guys, Or the first one that she introduced me were like the wild American, like beginning of the 80s, like Robert Longo, Schnabel, Christopher Wool, Peter Haley, Ross Blackner, all these guys. That was something that really inspired me and evolved my way of thinking and my way of cooking. So when I opened Osteria Francescana in '95, I was already on another planet, with my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned your nonprofit Food for Soul earlier. You've collabed with other chefs and restaurants worldwide.
Yeah.
And it includes a Bronx native, one of the co-founders of Ghetto Gastro, by the name of John Gray. And we actually have him on the phone.
Really?
Live from London.
Oh, John, where are you?
I'm in London, man. I'm in the ends out here.
I'm in London, man.
What's up, baby?
Ciao,
what up?
John.
Ciao, Massimo. Ciao, Bobbito. Ciao, Stretch. What's good?
What up, my man?
You don't sound Italian at all, man.
That's a North-South Bronx accent, The real Little Italy, off the Ave, you dig?
Word up.
Hey, John, just to make this dummy proof for those that don't know, can you briefly describe what Ghetto Gastro is?
Sure. It's a culinary collective. Me and 3 of my comrades kind of got together, wanted to express like the essence of our childhood, which is like hip hop, growing up on shows like Stretch and Bobbito, with those vibes, like, and distilling that feeling into food and food events and products around food, and just taking the aesthetic of like postmodernism, aka hip hop, and bringing that to the game.
It's so funny because if we could extract the words hip hop and the Bronx out of what you just said, and it completely reflects exactly what Massimo has been sharing with us about his approach towards cooking and cuisine.
True.
And just for the record, I'm the one member of Ghetto Gastro that's not a chef. They call me the dishwasher.
You are.
So
But you have to be proud of being there. You know?
And
I always say each role is very important. It's like, yeah, you have the chef, but if the dishwasher screw up, the whole service goes bad. So the team is the team. It doesn't matter if you're the chef or the dishwasher. And John?
you already know.
tell us how Massimo Bottura and Ghetto Gastro link up.
Yeah, because that's two worlds apart.
Can I tell this story,
Yeah.
Max?
Yeah, of course.
So check it. We 4 years ago, we in Copenhagen at this I guess symposium called MAD, and we kind of mob out.
Is that an acronym for something?
Is it an
MAD
acronym,
an
Massimo?
acronym for
I
something?
think MAD just means food in Danish.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's like a little double entendre. They try to get on their Sean Carter, I guess, with this thing. So we up there, Mad Symposium, and me and the homies, we mobbing through there, and we had on the GG merch, and we had like one of the after parties, and we meet Massimo and his wife Laura at our friend Matt Orlando's restaurant in Moss. We had dinner the night before. And then we went to the party, and we mobbing. I guess Massimo might have had a few drinks. We all was drinking. And we had the GG shirts on, and Massimo ran down on my partner Les, like, yo, where the fuck is my... Can I curse on this? Is this like... What's the...
Yeah, do whatever
Too
you
late
want.
now. It's already out there.
Massimo's like, yo, where's my GG shirt? I'm Ghetto Gastro. Where's my shirt? And he put pressure on the homies, and so we had to give him a shirt. And ever since then, I feel like we've been mobbing, you know?
That's true. That's what happened. And then, we became friends, and they came and visit us in Osteria many times. Actually, they sleep in my house, so that's how we treat people in Modena.
So
people like John is part of the family now.
Beautiful.
So how does Food for Soul, the nonprofit, and Ghetto Gastro act on a human level to create food for the objective of providing for those who may not have?
So I first learned about Food for Soul when I think it was still a work in progress, and it's when Massimo and Laura had come to New York. They did a book signing at the 92nd Street Y, which ironically is where I used to go to summer camp and after school when I was living in El Barrio in Spanish Harlem. So we went there for that, and they kind of gave us like a little teaser, like, yo, we working on something real important. It's gonna be good at some point. We want to like involve you if it makes sense. And then when they launched in Milan at the expo, I had the privilege of going out there. Then I was able to spend the day kind of observe, and it was just really inspiring to kind of see people really treated, people that might have been down on some hard times or going through something at the time, like being able to be in a space that was beautiful and treated like human beings and serve world-class cuisine, and using the waste. That piece also struck a chord. But also just like the elders from the community coming in to volunteer and having a place and something to do. So it's like that multi-generational immersion really touched me. And just being from the Bronx, which is like the people of the community are very food insecure. We don't have a lot of access to good food options. So I was like, yo, when you're thinking about New York, let's think about the Bronx and how we can make it happen. So I think that's what we're still trying to figure out, locking the right partners to get that going in New York at some point.
Well, if you need help, once the Bronx gets going, please.
Of course,
lean on us.
We will
Love to help you.
need all the help from everyone, because it's extremely important. The more you involve community, the more important we became, because it's all about you are welcome. Come, walk in, be part of our community.
Hey, John, appreciate you reaching out, my brother, and I look forward to meeting you and crossing paths at some point.
Ciao, John.
No question. Let's build.
Ciao, John.
Later, man.
Ciao.
Peace.
Ciao, John.
All right, ciao. Peace, everybody.
We're going to take a quick break. Massimo will be right back, all right?
Yes, of course.
All right.
Of course.
20th Century Fox presenting The Hate U Give, a new film about hope and standing up for what is right. Based on a critically acclaimed New York Times bestseller by Angie Thomas. Starring Amanda Stenberg as Star with Regina Hall, Russell Hornsby, Issa Rae, KJ Apa, Algie Smith, Sabrina Carpenter, Common, and Anthony Mackie. Find your voice. Change the world. The Hate U Give in select theaters October 5th and everywhere October 19th.
This week on Code Switch, La Bamba. Why this Spanish-language song with Afro-Mexican roots is an all-American anthem.
And we're back with Massimo Bottura.
Word up, and it's time for the impression session. It's pretty simple, Massimo. We're going to do something that you love to do, which is listen to music. We're each going to play you a track, you react, and as simple as that.
All right. I'm here.
A group of young men or teenagers, aged between like 12 and 16. And
really? I didn't know that.
And that's one of the earliest records on Def Jam. It was an anomaly because it's not a hip hop record. That's a go-go record. I don't know if you're familiar with go-go music, but it's one of the most local genres of music in the United States. It's from Washington, D.C., and I guess the easiest way to describe it would be hip hop, but with a live band. But they still, the parties are called go-go's. They still have them to this day. Briefly in the 80s, go-go records were crossing over like Trouble Funk. They were sampled a lot in hip hop.
EU had a big hit. Do It in the Butt.
Wow,
I don't know if you know that song.
Doing the Butt.
Doing the Butt. Oh, doing
anyway,
the Butt.
I love that record. And we both played you songs that are about food, which is kind of silly. It just worked out like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm talking too much.
No, I love it. I love your explanation. You know, I love that kind of stuff because I'm not familiar with that. So I was very interesting to understand what are you talking about. I have another thing that, a story about food and involving a guy from New York. This guy was Lou Reed. He wasn't crazy about food. An artist, Timothy Greenfield Sanders, made a reservation for him and his band because they were playing in Modena. I was like, wow, Lou Reed is coming. Wow. I was so excited. And at the end of the meal, he said, do you have a table for tomorrow for lunch? Of course. So he came back and I set a new tasting menu, for him. And he said, okay, I have to go, but I'm coming back tonight if you have a table, of course. I said, yes, I'm going to have a table for you, but you're going to sign all my records. I said, of course I'll do. For you, I'll do it. He didn't realize that I had like 75 vinyl, and all these things. And he did it. And he said,
you brought all 75 of Lou Reed's albums.
All the albums. And I have all signed by him.
Yeah.
From the Velvet to his albums.
Amazing.
And all the bootlegs.
Uh-huh.
In that moment, I was very struggling because people didn't understand what I was doing. Because it's much more easy to stay in nostalgia and keep going like that and not asking yourself question and doubt and,
Well, the world is grateful for the risk that you have taken.
Thank you.
Ci vediamo.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Ci vediamo next time or in Modena.
Yes.
Grazie,
Grazie a tutti. Grazie a tutti, ragazzi. Yoo-hoo. We love music and food.
That is our show. This podcast was produced by Michelle Lanz, edited by Jordana Hochman and Nigeri Eaton, and our executive producer is Abby O'Neill. Music by composer Eli Escobar and our own Robertino Garcia.
If you like the show, you can find more at npr.org or wherever you get your podcasts, including bonus video content on Spotify on Fridays. Thanks to Spotify for their support. While you're at it, please go to Apple Podcasts and rate, review, and subscribe. That's how we know you are listening.
You can follow us on Twitter at Stretch and Bob or Instagram at Stretch and Bobbito.
Word up!
Peace!